It was a quiet Saturday night, and I was completely alone in the house. I had fallen into a deep sleep when something strange pulled me awake. A faint voice echoed through the darkness of my room. It was Siri. My phone, resting on the nightstand beside my bed, had lit up on its own. The cold glow of the screen cast eerie shadows across the walls as Siri spoke in that calm, emotionless tone. Half asleep and confused, I grabbed my phone and turned it off. I muttered to myself that it was probably just a glitch and forced my eyes shut again. About an hour later, it happened again. This time, the voice was louder, clearer. Siri was responding to something, but I hadn't said a word. A strange, incomplete sentence played through the speaker, something unnatural and distorted, almost like a voice that wasn't meant to be understood. Then Siri replied, "The answer is Thursday, July 4th, 1776. A chill ran down my spine. Now fully awake, I stared at my phone, my heart beating faster than it should. My room suddenly felt wrong, too quiet, too still. I tried to convince myself it was just some random activation, maybe a background app, maybe interference. Technology glitches all the time, right? Swallowing my fear, I turned the phone off again and lay back down. But sleep didn't come easily this time.
I must have eventually drifted off, but not for long. For the third time that night, I was dragged out of sleep. Siri was speaking again, but this time it was different. There was no static, no distortion, no broken phrases. The voice that triggered Siri was clear. Too clear. It spoke my full name, every syllable perfectly pronounced, as if someone was standing right beside my bed, whispering directly into my phone. My entire body went cold. I hadn't touched my phone. I hadn't said anything. There was no one else in the house. Then Siri responded, "Here's what I found for my name." The screen lit up again, illuminating my room in that pale, ghostly light. I didn't even look at what it showed. I couldn't, because at that moment, one terrifying thought took over my mind. If I didn't say it, then who did? Panic hit me all at once. I grabbed my phone, jumped out of bed, and ran out of my room without looking back. The hallway felt darker than usual, like something was watching me from the shadows. I rushed into my parents' room, slammed the door shut, and locked it behind me with shaking hands. Even though I knew I was alone, I didn't feel alone anymore. I curled up on the bed, clutching my phone tightly, staring at the door as if it might slowly creak open at any second. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night, and even now, I still can't convince myself that it was just a glitch. I was home alone, sitting in my room, completely absorbed in my computer game. It was around 2 in the morning, the kind of hour where everything feels unnaturally quiet, like the world outside has gone still. The only sound in the room was the faint clicking of my mouse and the low hum of my computer. Then, knock, knock, knock. The sound came from my window. My head snapped toward it instantly. For a moment, I just stared, frozen. The curtains were slightly open, but I couldn't see anyone outside. Just darkness. Endless, empty darkness. I told myself it had to be nothing. Maybe a branch, maybe something hit the glass. Still, my chest felt tight. I wasn't the type to confront things. I'd rather avoid them entirely. So I got up, walked slowly, and shut the blinds completely. A silent message: I'm not interested. Go away. After a while, I managed to calm down and went back to my game. The normal sounds of the screen helped drown out the uneasiness creeping in my chest. Minutes passed, maybe more. Just as I started to relax again, knock, knock, knock. This time, it was slower, more deliberate. My stomach dropped. Now I knew it wasn't random. Someone was out there. I felt a mix of fear and irritation. Why were they doing this? Why wouldn't they just leave? But then another thought crept in. What if they actually needed help? That tiny possibility was enough to push me toward the worst decision of my life. With shaky hands, I stepped toward the window. My heartbeat echoed loudly in my ears as I slowly lifted the blinds. Darkness stared back at me. I hesitated, then carefully unlocked the window and pulled it open, just a crack.
The moment the window cracked open, it happened. Two hands shot out from the darkness. They slammed against the bottom of the window and forced it upward with terrifying strength. The glass rattled violently as the window flew open. A man in a black hoodie lunged forward, trying to climb into my room. My brain barely had time to process what was happening before pure instinct took over. I screamed, loud, uncontrollably. I started throwing punches at him, wild, desperate swings, anything to keep him back. My fists collided with his arms, his shoulders, his face, but he kept pushing forward. He didn't say a word. That made it worse. In a blind panic, I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, my desk lamp, and swung it as hard as I could. Crack! The lamp connected with his head. The man let out a low grunt and stumbled backward, losing his grip on the window. He fell outside, disappearing into the darkness for a split second. That was my chance. I rushed forward and slammed the window shut with all my strength, locking it instantly. My hands were shaking so badly I almost couldn't manage it. For a second, everything went silent. Then I saw him. Through the thin gaps in the blinds, I caught a glimpse of his shadowy figure as he got back up and ran. He sprinted across the yard and vanished into the darkness as if he had never been there at all. I stood there, frozen, barely able to breathe. The room felt colder than before, heavier. I didn't sleep that night, and to this day, I still think about one thing. What would have happened if I hadn't stopped him?
I lived far out in the country, the kind of place where paved roads eventually disappear and silence stretches for miles in every direction. That night, I was completely alone. Everything was still. No cars, no voices, just the distant whisper of the wind brushing against the fields. Then suddenly, bang! Something slammed onto the roof. I froze. Before I could even react, another loud crash echoed above me, followed by a harsh metallic sound, as if something had struck the chimney. Clang, scrape, thud. My heart began to pound. Whatever it was moving. I stood there staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it. Maybe an animal? Something fell. That's what I told myself. But then the noise changed. It wasn't just on the roof anymore. I could hear it inside the chimney. Slow, heavy banging like something was forcing its way down. That shouldn't have been possible. We had sealed the chimney for the summer. There was no way anything could get inside. And yet, for the next hour, I listened as it continued. Bang, scrape, bang. Each sound echoed through the house, making the walls feel like they were closing in around me. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there, listening, waiting. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. The sounds from the chimney suddenly stopped. Complete silence filled the house. For a few seconds, I almost felt relief, like whatever it was had finally gone away. Then, the front door handle started shaking. At first, it was subtle, a faint metallic rattle, but within seconds it grew more aggressive. Rattle, rattle, rattle. It sounded like someone was trying to force their way inside. My heart started racing again, faster than before. Every instinct in my body told me not to go near that door, but something pulled me toward it anyway. Step by step, I moved closer. The rattling didn't stop. Whoever or whatever was on the other side was persistent. I leaned in and slowly looked through the peephole. Nothing. No one stood there. No shadow, no movement, just the empty darkness of the outside. But the handle was still shaking. That made no sense. A cold wave of fear washed over me. Without thinking, I grabbed the door handle and yanked the door open. Silence. Instant, absolute silence. No wind, no footsteps, no figure running away. There was nothing there, just the empty night stretching out in front of me. I stood frozen in the doorway, staring into the darkness, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. Then, a terrifying thought settled in. If nothing was outside, then what was trying to get in? I slowly closed the door, locking it with trembling hands, and for the rest of the night, I never left that spot. I was home alone one summer afternoon, doing nothing unusual, just sitting in the living room watching TV. Everything felt normal, too normal. The movie was playing, the room was quiet, and the sunlight poured in through the windows, making the house feel safe. Then I heard it, a faint shuffling sound coming from above me. At first, I barely noticed it. I thought it might have been the house settling, or maybe something small shifting in the attic. But then it came again. Shuffle, scrape. This time it was clearer, slower, deliberate. My living room had a very high ceiling, and directly above it was the attic. There were no other rooms up there. I slowly lowered the volume of the TV. The sound became more noticeable. Something was definitely moving up there. A cold uneasiness settled in my chest. The attic was connected to my brother's bedroom through his closet. That meant if something was up there, I could check it from inside the house. I hesitated. Every instinct told me not to go, but curiosity and a need to prove to myself that it was nothing pushed me forward. I walked to my brother's room. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached his closet, I slowly opened the door. The attic entrance was right there above me. The light inside the attic had been broken for a while, which meant if I wanted to see anything, I'd have to go in with a flashlight. I grabbed a flashlight and slowly pushed open the attic hatch. A wave of stale, dusty air drifted down toward me. I hesitated for a moment, then climbed up. The attic was completely dark, the kind of darkness that feels thick, almost alive. My flashlight beam cut through it, revealing old boxes, plastic bags, and forgotten junk scattered across the wooden floor. Each step I took made the boards creak beneath my weight. Creak, creak. I had only taken 2 steps inside when I heard it. A sudden shift in the distance. Creak. But it wasn't from me. It came from deeper inside the attic. I froze. Something else had just stepped. Before I could even process that thought, I heard another sound. Rustle. Like something brushing up against one of the plastic bags on the floor. My breath caught in my throat. I slowly turned the flashlight toward the sound. The beam shook in my trembling hand, but it didn't reveal anything, just more darkness. But I knew I wasn't alone up there. Panic hit me instantly. I turned around, rushed back to the hatch, and practically jumped down into the closet. I slammed the attic door shut and backed away, my heart pounding violently in my chest. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed my phone and called my parents, my voice shaking as I told them everything. When my dad got home later that day, he went up to check the attic. He searched every corner, every box, every shadow, but he found nothing. No sign that anyone or anything had been there. But I'll never forget what I heard. And honestly, I'm just glad the attic isn't connected to my room. It was just me and my dog, Layla, at home that evening. I was in my room with the music turned up loud enough to drown out almost anything happening in the house, or at least it should have. Because even through the blasting music, I suddenly heard Layla barking. Not just barking, she was going crazy. Her barks were sharp, aggressive, and non-stop, the kind she only made when something was seriously wrong. My stomach tightened. I pulled off my headphones and stepped out of my room. The house felt different immediately, too tense, too alert. Then I heard it, the sound of Layla's paws pounding against the floor as she ran. But she wasn't running upstairs. She was going down, toward the basement, still barking, louder than ever. I followed her quickly, my heart beginning to race. As I reached the stairs, I saw her already halfway down, standing stiff and rigid, her body locked in an attack stance. Her eyes were fixed on something below. I flipped on the basement light. The dim yellow glow revealed Layla standing at the bottom of the stairs, facing the closed door to the boiler room. She was growling now, low, deep, threatening. Her claws scratched against the door as she barked and jumped at it, like she was trying to break it open. I swallowed hard. Every instinct told me not to go near that door, but something about the situation pulled me closer. I stepped down slowly, each step echoing louder than it should in the silence. When I reached the bottom, I stood just a few feet away from the door. Layla didn't stop. She kept barking, kept scratching, as if something on the other side was trying to get out, or worse, trying to stay hidden. I raised my hand and knocked on the door. The moment my knuckles tapped against the door, Layla completely lost control. She started barking even louder, jumping up against the door, scratching furiously like she was desperate to get inside, or desperate to stop something from coming out. My voice came out shaky as I spoke. "Is anyone in there?" No answer, not even a sound. But somehow, that silence felt wrong, too heavy, too deliberate. Layla kept going, barking, clawing, growling like I had never seen before. Her entire body was tense, her eyes locked on the door as if she could see something I couldn't. A cold fear crept over me. I suddenly realized, if something really was in there, I didn't want to see it. Not at all. Without wasting another second, I grabbed Layla by the collar and pulled her away. She resisted, still barking, still trying to get back to the door. I dragged her up the stairs as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest. Once upstairs, I slammed the basement door shut and locked it. Then I waited. Every second felt longer than the last. When my dad finally got home, I told him everything. The barking, the door, the silence. He didn't hesitate. He went straight to the basement to check. I followed behind him, but kept my distance. As he reached the bottom of the stairs, he stopped. Something had caught his attention. Near the basement window, there was a ladder leaning against the wall, and the window was smashed open. My stomach dropped. My dad's expression changed instantly. He pulled out his phone and called the police, his voice tense and urgent. That's when it hit me. Layla hadn't been barking at nothing. She had been barking at someone. An intruder. Someone who had already made their way inside the house and was hiding just a few feet away from me, behind that door. I felt a chill run through my entire body, because if I had opened it, I might not be here telling this story.